They take wing at night. Millions of birds, thousands of species, making their biannual journey between wintering grounds in the south and breeding grounds in the north. A journey that counts amongst nature's most awe-inspiring mysteries.
When you look at all species of birds in North America, 70% of them migrate.
And it's not just birds. Bats and even some insects travel immense distances each spring and fall, driven by the promise of more food, better weather, and longer days. It's an arduous undertaking, and one that often demands breaks to rest and refuel. At stopover habitats like this one, Jug Bay Wetlands on the Patuxent River.
The Patuxent River corridor is a major bird migration pathway. I always liken Jug Bay to a gas station. I call it nature's gas station.
Greg Kearns is the park naturalist here at Patuxent River Park in Prince George's County, home to the Jug Bay Natural Area.
It's a refueling stop for probably millions of birds of hundreds of species to store up and stock up and refuel for the next leg of their long migrations.
That's especially true in early fall, when birds headed south for the winter flock to these wetlands to gorge on the area's bounty of wild rice. Springtime is quieter, but there are still plenty of birds passing through. And on a sunny April morning, Greg and his team are on the hunt for one bird in particular, the Sora rail, a secretive marsh dweller, less likely to be seen than heard.
They spend majority of their life in dense marsh vegetation. The only time they fly is at night when they're migrating. The vocalizations are the key to them finding each other in that dense marsh.
Little do they know, there are imposters in their midst.
Here we have this digital sound system that uses MP3 files to attract the birds. We actually load the files on there of the Soras, all three different main calls. So we've learned that using those calls will attract them into the traps, and we can catch them in large numbers. Over 6,000 rails we've captured and banded here over the last 30 years.
And counting.
All right, we just got 2 Sora rails. Appears to be a male here in my left hand, and right hand looks like a female.
Both headed north from wintering grounds potentially as far south as Ecuador, to breeding grounds in Canada and the northern U.S. It's a dangerous endeavor, traveling thousands of miles through unknown habitat, at the mercy of wind and weather. These long-distance migrants rely on wetland rest stops, which could change or even disappear from one year to the next, as human development takes its toll.
Wetlands are declining. More than half of the wetlands in the United States have disappeared in the last 50 years, and I think that the populations of these birds are declining right along with it.
But with each visiting bird his team traps, Greg hopes to shed a little more light on the mysteries of migration and gain knowledge which will enable conservationists to protect key habitat.
We know they show up in places at different times of the year, but how do they do it? That's what we want to know. How long does it take them? Where are the most important areas that they need to stop?
In decades past, Greg's only means of tracking individual birds involved fitting them with coated aluminum bands and hoping to someday cross paths again. But these days, the technology is a little more advanced, thanks to something called the Motus Wildlife Tracking System.
Okay, I'll bring it down right here.
Launched in 2014 by Birds Canada, Motus is a global network of more than 1,200 receiving towers, like this one, which enable researchers to track the movements of migrating birds, bats, and butterflies by fitting them with tiny radio transmitters, each with its own unique digital code.
The amazing technology that you're looking at right here has a battery, basically, and a small transistor that transmits a signal through this antenna, and it can be picked up as much as 10 to 15 kilometers away. The weight of it shouldn't bother the bird at all, but now it has the chance to be picked up on a network of more than 650 MODIS towers, MODIS stations throughout North America, depending on where it flies.
Including upwards of 15 in Maryland. Many established by Department of Natural Resources ecologist Dave Brinker.
So we're here at the High Rock Fire Tower to do an annual inspection on the MODIS receiver and the antennas. The MODIS system is a great example of collaborative science. We put some towers up in Maryland, the Pennsylvania Game Commission puts towers up in Pennsylvania, and we all then allow researchers to ask fairly sophisticated questions about how birds are getting through the migratory period by passing this great collaboration of towers.
Here in Maryland, MODIS towers form a virtual fence line running from Assateague Island on the Atlantic coast to the mountains of Garrett County.
So that any bird that's migrating, if it passes through Maryland and is wearing one of the two types of tags that MODIS detects, there's a good chance that it will get picked up by one of these towers.
Back at Jug Bay, Greg keeps tabs on his newly tagged soras with a portable receiver.
They're probably feeding heavily and getting themselves ready for the next leg of their migration once they leave here. Probably within the next 2 weeks, I would estimate that they'll be gone.
And when they do leave the park, Jug Bay's own MODIS tower will record the precise moment of their departure. Take transmitter 400, a SORA tagged this spring which will begin its journey north on May 20th, flying within range of 2 of Dave's Western Maryland towers before heading to breeding grounds in the Great Lakes region.
We've learned more about their migration just using these nanotags in the past 4 years than in previous 100 years of bird banding.
From how fast and far different species can fly in a night, to how they use winds to their advantage. But perhaps one of the biggest takeaways is the importance of protecting places like Jug Bay. And with new MODIS towers going up every year, there are undoubtedly countless exciting discoveries still to come.
A lot of people don't stop and think about it on a clear, starry night when there's a north wind blowing, what is going on over their heads in the darkness. I just think it's opening new windows of science